Southeast Queensland is a hotbed of biodiversity, and even the nondescript forests that border the suburbs are host to a wondrous array of life forms. Granted, most are not something you'd ever stand a chance of noticing if you merely cruised along the myriad of walking tracks that meander beneath the lofty crowns of the eucalypt trees. But should you dial back the pace and spare a few moments to take a closer look at this seemingly mundane landscape, a hidden world begins to unveil itself. The ground, in many cases, was strewn with rocks, providing abundant refuge for one of the forest's most ancient hunters. So here is a beautiful male. Shit! Are you alright? Yeah, okay, so that was definitely intended. Ah, right. Okay, let's pretend that didn't happen. So this is a beautiful male Hormurus. It's a very common, I wouldn't say very common, but quite a common scorpion species in southeast Queensland. And as you can tell by how nonchalantly I picked him up, these are extremely docile scorpions. And the reason I can tell this is a male is one, the relative size of the pincers compared to the rest of the body. And, more notably, the fact that there's a little notch. You can kind of see there. And that's only present in the males of this species. This isn't, however, something that is ubiquitous to all scorpions, but it is a reliable way to distinguish the two sexes for these. Alright, off you pop. Second Hormurus. Again, it's another male. This one not quite as big as the previous one, but still a pretty fair size. And as you can tell, extremely mellow animals. Who's a good boy? It's really been quite the day for scorpions. It's been maybe 1 minute, 2 minutes since the last one, and here we go. This one looks like a female. See how there's no notch in the pincers there. Let me just shake your hand. When you're flipping rogs, locks, whatever, always make sure to put them back, and not only put them back, but put them back in the position that they were in before. They build up a lot of moisture on the underside, a lot of shelter, and when you flip them over and forget to return them to their original position, all that built up moisture desiccates and it ceases to become a viable habitat. The trunks of the trees, too, were home to an all manner of intriguing creatures. The loose sheets of peeling bark provide ideal shelter for many of the smaller inhabitants of the forest, and even in such a familiar landscape as this, there are always surprises to be found. This is an absolute first for me, an undescribed arboreal Cormocephalus species that dwells beneath the bark of eucalypt trees. It has been observed a few times before, and I'm well aware that they're in the area, but this is the first time I've ever actually seen one. Kind of looks like Scolopendra morsitans at first glance, but hey! Well, this is a surprising find. A pretty sizable Grylacriid. In fact, come to think of it, this is probably the biggest Grylacriid I've seen since I was up at Nakarada and saw those massive Chorleo Grylacris. There are many different species of Grylacriid in Australia, and for someone like me who isn't especially well versed on insects, identification can make for quite a daunting task. It is possible that this individual is a member of the genus Pteropotrecus, At least observations labelled as such do seem to fit this animal's appearance. As is the norm for Grylacridids, this insect comes equipped with powerful mandibles and grappling spines on its front four legs. It is likely a generalist feeder, consuming both plant matter and smaller animals. Its larger relative from North Queensland, Chorlio grylacris, possesses one of the most powerful bites of any insect, and I'm sure this smaller species would still be able to give me a rather substantial chomp if it felt so inclined. Continuing with the theme of unanticipated orthopterans, a pair of juvenile Acropisa reticulata. These katydids are among the strangest insects in the country. Youngsters like this admittedly aren't that much of a sight, but the adults, upon being threatened, boast a truly shocking display. This, however, is merely theatrics, as these insects are completely harmless. The larger of these nymphs is identifiable as a male, as 4 wing buds can be discerned upon his back. Females, on the contrary, possess only 2 wings. The canopy above usually seems a world apart from the ground that we walk upon, occupied by animals that we could, at most, hope for a fleeting glimpse of. Perhaps a barely discernible silhouette or an anonymous shape flitting through the leaves. But on occasion, the denizens of this lofty habitat are dislodged from their perches, and as I fought my way through the dense undergrowth, inadvertently flicking branches into a travelling companion's face with infuriating frequency, we stumbled across one of these passengers from above. Okay, so somehow I missed this. An absolutely huge phasmid, and it's not even adult yet as well. I can tell that because the wings are not fully developed yet. But I suspect, and I could be wrong here, I suspect that this is a penultimate Eurycnema Goliath. Adults actually look, if it is the species I think it is, adults actually look very different. They are green and probably just as annoying as this idiot. So it seems that my tentative identification was correct. This insect is indeed Eurycnema Goliath. And mark my words, however impressive you think it is now, it doesn't hold a candle to what it will look like when it reaches maturity after its next molt. Here is a fully grown female that I encountered several years ago, likely smote from on high by a storm that raged through the night, though thankfully uninjured. Eurycnema Goliath is unsurprisingly one of Australia's largest insects, and also a very popular pet, not only due to its breathtaking appearance, but its general ease of care provided one has reliable access to eucalypt leaves, which in Australia is a pretty easy criteria to satisfy. Anyway, now it was time to help this annoying piece of this splendid insect back up to the canopy. Of course, when it comes to animals, the more the merrier, though for my last couple trips I did have one particular quarry in mind when scouring the tree trunks for critters, and that was for the sake of setting up a little romance. This is a captive-bred Isopeda queenslandensis. She's about a year old and has been mature for a few months, but I've yet to have a chance to breed her. So, you guessed it, I was on the lookout for an eligible 8-legged bachelor, and I was soon to realise that, while finding male Isopeda queenslandensis was not going to be an especially difficult ordeal, finding ones that weren't already occupied would be more of a challenge. It's a little bit close to the ground, so I don't have the highest of hopes, but oh! 2 in 1. Male and female Isopeda queenslandensis. Sorry, did I interrupt something? Yeah, I think I'm just going to leave you to it. Oh, hello. Oh! It's another pair. Okay, sorry guys. Yep, it was only a very brief glimpse, but that was another pair of Isopeda queenslandensis. Perhaps the ethics of filming huntsman couples in their most intimate moments and sharing the footage on a public internet platform may be questionable, but I did at least set some standards for myself in that I quickly left the happy couples to do their thing without hanging around to film those juicy close-up shots, and I was eventually rewarded for my politeness. Male Isopeda queenslandensis that isn't already occupied. So he'll be coming home with me, getting paired with my females and then getting released. Alright, we just found a male, and this is a female Isopeda queenslandensis. And quite a cool looking species too. You can see the really rather bright orange coloration on the opistosoma, which is, as far as I know, fairly unique among Isopeda. And she's also lost one leg on each side, so essentially she's demoted to being an insect. Huntsmen are something that many an Australian will regard with some degree of fondness, and are oftentimes affectionately called wall puppies. Of course, comparing them to puppies isn't exactly the Everest of accuracy. One is a clean, innocuous household pet that is perfectly safe around children, and the other is a puppy. But while huntsmen are oft bestowed with endearment, there is another group of spiders in Australia with a reputation that could not be more different. And in the moisture-laden soils along the creeks, these much more maligned arachnids live out their elusive existence. Alright, so here's the web of Hadronyche infensa. And the reason I say infensa is because that's the only species of funnel web that occurs in this area. And scattered around the outside are the remains of all of its meals. Funnel web spiders seem to prey on millipedes a lot, and let's face it, they're some of the only prey items that are slow enough for those fat fuckers to catch. And these are the discarded body segments of some of the spiders' get out of the way leaf former victims. Okay, so I'm doing something really stupid here. I've found a funnel web, not having anything to push it back with. I'm using my finger, so let's get something else, shall we? Come on out, little fella. Come on out. Yeah, so guys, please don't use your fingers to evict funnel webs, okay? Well, take a look at that. So, once again, this is Hadronyche infensa, and this individual is still very much a juvenile. Hadronyche infensa, when fully grown, are among the largest of the funnel webs, often outsizing their better-known relatives from Sydney by a pretty considerable margin. Hey, where do you think you're going? I'm not done talking about you. Lucky you're slow. Well, lucky for me. Not so lucky for you when a centipede comes along. And you know what? I think this may be a great opportunity to show that, while obviously deserving of respect, bit hypocritical of me, funnel web spiders are not the mindlessly aggressive monsters that they are often made out to be. I would of course like to reiterate that I do not in any way recommend doing this. Funnel web spiders are medically significant, and their bites do have the potential to be lethal, even if said potential is frequently overstated. But this particular individual was showing no signs of defensiveness whatsoever, so I thought it would present a great opportunity To demonstrate that these animals are far from the miniature vessels of pure anger and vitriol they are often presented as. It's also worth adding that temperament varies between individuals, sometimes quite drastically, so you may come across some funnel webs that'll adopt a defensive display at the slightest of disturbance, and others that barely react at all. Most appear to be somewhere in the middle, being generally passive animals but not hesitating to throw up a threat display if harassed. Off you pop. No, back the other way, Other way. Your home's that way. Yes, there we go. After aiding my blind little friend back to its burrow, it was time to bid it a fond farewell. And although that's the majority of the day's finds over, there was still yet one more critter that I feel is too fascinating not to include. At first glance, you might think that this is an earthworm. Understandable, of course, but you'd be wrong. For this intriguing little critter is in fact a snake, a member of the family Typhlopidae, that specialises in hunting small subterranean prey such as termites and ant larvae, save for a foul odour that they can release if threatened. That brings this video to a close. Hope you enjoyed learning about some of the amazing and often overlooked creatures that can be found around southeast Queensland. If you want to see more videos like this, check out this playlist of all my outdoor adventures. And don't forget to subscribe if you enjoy my content. Thank you all very much for watching, and I shall see you again very soon.